Hi, here we go. So today on Silk Road, joined a little bit late. The Jets have already gone for a run, but I'm just going to take a look at mistakes made in this video and also how to deal with certain tactics from opposition jets. So starting off, just spinning around here, see the enemy jet on my radar. He's actually in my spawn. Starts getting a fair bit of damage on me, so I switch away from him. Here he's doing okay. He's sticking to his vertical loop, which is good for me because that's predictable. So I'm actually going to move to cut him off here. So a switch is basically what I'm doing right now. I just roll to the right to enter a horizontal loop, and whereas I was doing a vertical loop before that. And what that does is it allows me to basically meet him halfway through his loop, so essentially cutting the loop in half. And that's how you get on the tail of an enemy jet really quickly. There's another jet coming just down there on the bottom of the screen. You can see its icon, but it actually didn't show up on the air radar for a little while there, and that's actually because it was quite close to the ground, about 25 meters or less. It's quite literally under the radar. You won't be able to see it. Here I'm going to use the laser fake out again, so just switching the rocket between the targets so that the intended target gets no warning before they get hit. And I'm doing that not for kills, but just to soften them up a little bit, put some pressure on them, give the team a chance to push up the field, because typically when you take a laser guided missile, tendency is to get out and repair, which means you're not shooting at the opposition, so that means my team has a chance to move up, because right now we only have 3 flags, the opposition has 4, so over time they will win. Right now I'm just looking for more targets again. I'm going to try the laser fake out, swap from that LAV to the tank. There's 2 little white indicators that came up just there. They're lock-on warnings. The fact that I was getting locked by 2 things at the same time was concerning, because that can mean a few things. Most concerningly of that is that it's a PLD or a soft lam, and then a javelin is locking on. The issue with getting a javelin locked onto you is if your ECM runs out while that javelin is on your tail, it actually can get through the ECM once your ECM finishes. So in order to avoid that, you would basically have to cause the javelin to crash into something that isn't you, or hope that your ECM lasts longer than the javelin does. So if you ever find that you're getting blown up midair all of a sudden and it's by a javelin or a laser guided missile or whatever, the way to deal with those rockets is to fly close to the ground or near cover, cause the rocket to collide with that. So here I'm taking lock-ons from a helicopter, so I use my ECM. I'm getting some altitude. I'm going to swoop in directly above him to take him out, but unfortunately for me, both enemy jets spawn right as I do this. I get hit with 2 heat seekers. They're not a huge deal. I'm immobilized, which is why I'm flying upside down like that. When you lose mobility in the jet, pitching down is actually one of the few ways you can remain mobile and quick. Pitching up or yawing is actually reduced quite a lot, the speed of it. So you'll find that when you get hit with a Stinger or heat seeker or whatever, pitching down and then flying in an inverted fashion is the most reliable way to stay on the move after taking a hit. So now I'm going to try and take this helicopter out. Here you can see me bursting the cannons, but what I'm not doing is giving enough time between the series of bursts, so my cannon actually overheats here. What you want to do is burst a few times and then leave a little bit of time after a series of bursts for the cannon to cool down, or micro bursts, which is just rapidly tapping the trigger. Here I'm just hosing him down. Unfortunately I crashed straight into him. That's the target fixation at play. I discussed that briefly in the previous video. I just apologize there because that was quite unfortunate that I rammed him. If you want to avoid crashing into your targets, it really just becomes a game of patience and how much you're willing to work for a kill. Like right here, I'm committing quite heavily to the kill, and I nearly pay the price for it, because as you saw, that tail on that helicopter whipped around when I killed it. The Chinese and Russian helis do that, so you got to make sure you keep your distance. Try and finish your engagement early, and that the time at which your engagement finishes really depends on your accuracy with your aim and the amount of damage that has already been dealt to that helicopter and how long it takes you to kill them. So there's a nice little triple kill there on the LAV. Just using the laser guided cam to spot more infantry, tanks, anything like that. Help the team out, put the opposition on the map. What I did just there was a good way to deal with tanks or AA or anything really, is come in fast from a side they're not expecting and drop a rocket on their head. It gives them almost no warning, and it's a great way to get some damage in quickly and then fly away in a hurry. So right there, the enemy jet did surprise me. He was on my radar, but I didn't notice because I was looking for targets on the ground. Fortunately, I'm able to switch away from him. And you see here, he does a little bit of a switch, which was good, but unfortunately for him, I was already watching him, so I knew how to switch to catch up to him. Also, every so often you might see me looking at the rear cam, just flying away from the map. What I'm actually doing is I'm trying to spot things on the ground. If you line the glass of your cockpit up with a target you're trying to spot, while you're in the rear cam view, you can spot things from much further away than you can normally spot them. So it's a good way to, you know, figure out what you're going to shoot at next, or just help your team out in general by spotting tanks or infantry or anything like that, so that your team knows where they are. Speaking of the team, at this point we're doing well. We're making good progress on the map. We're starting to set up a little bit of a border where the enemy tanks are congregating and they're not really pushing up very much. Here, just take out that helicopter as well. He's out of position, totally surrounded. So it's a pretty easy kill there. And he saw me just spot that helicopter. Again, I like to prioritize the aircraft. Here there's no anti-aircraft tanks, so really there's no reason to go for tanks if there's still a helicopter or a jet in the air. Here I'm doing the little bursts again. Just going to get some altitude on him here because I don't want to get locked onto. I'm going to come from directly above. Makes it quite hard for him to do anything about it. He does get some distance, but because he's so close to the ground, he won't be able to look up at me without crashing into the ground in the process, so I'm not too worried. Right there is a little bit unfortunate. If you're too close to a target, your laser-guided missile doesn't actually start tracking the target right away. It actually sort of just jettisons off the jet. Like you saw there briefly, it has a staccato type of movement profile. So it sort of just, it juts around a little bit, and at the first couple of seconds, or couple of milliseconds, it doesn't actually fly towards the target. So right there was a smooth little switch rather, to swap the rotation on that jet. I lost sight of him because he bailed, but because I couldn't see him on the air radar. But now, again, helicopter out of position, friendly helicopter's showing up, about to take him out, so I might as well just clean him up, pave the way for that friendly chopper to drop troops off or cap flags. So at this point you can see the tanks are really starting to group up. I'm going to laser fake out this tank again. So I lock onto a target that isn't the target I intend to hit to get my laser guided missile in the air, and then just as it's about to hit that target, I switch over to the target I actually want to hit, which causes my laser guided missile to hit them with no warning, or very little warning, so they can't block it with their APS. I decided not to commit to that. I probably could have dropped that laser on him, but coming in with the gunner shooting at me like that, there is a chance that the driver is switched on as well, and he might try and tow missile me as I swoop past him. A bit unlucky there on the timing with the APS. So I am going to come back around now that I have the information that his APS is down. I did see the helicopter blip up on the radar there. Just tried to laser fake out that tank, but didn't really leave myself enough time to do it properly. But I did get his APS, which is good for putting pressure on them. Just keeping those tanks a little bit more wary, which means they're not trying to push, they're going to sit back and be a bit passive. Right now I'm just scanning the battlefield, looking for things, spotting infantry, tanks, anything like that. That helicopter hasn't really been up to much. I do see the jet pop up on the radar though, so I'm going to go for him. He spotted me. I'm going to pop my ACM early, and you saw his rocket come out just there. That's a passive radar. So they can shoot at you even if they aren't able to lock at you, or get a good lock on you rather, with the passive radar. That can be an issue because if you don't evade, that passive radar missile will collide with you. You'll see this happen later on in the game, but basically even if you manage to pop your ECM in time, the passive radar missile actually can just keep flying towards where it was last headed, which is obviously towards you, so it can still collide with you. which is where the passive radar glitch comes into play. It's quite a powerful strategy for dealing with enemy jets. So here I'm just going to put some pressure on this helicopter, just light him up a little bit, getting a bit close for comfort there. Again, bit of target fixation. What you have to keep in mind is a lot of pilots will start to turn towards you. They'll retaliate when you're strafing them like that. That's natural because they see the little red indicator on their screen. They want to turn and shoot back at whatever's causing the damage. Alternatively, they'll turn to run away. Both of those things are a bit of a threat to you because those heli tails are really long, so it's definitely easy to crash. If they start maneuvering when you're on your final approach, you can easily slam straight into them like I did earlier in the video. Just there, just helping put some pressure on that tank, and since I saw his APS go down, I'm just going to drop another rocket on him. But I'll leave that alone because the enemy jet's on my 6. I popped my ECM. That's not to block any rockets or anything, it's actually to get me off the radar so he loses track of me. And I do that right as I start my switching. So it's a good way to get him totally disoriented. He has no idea where I am anymore. Probably did hear me zoom past him just then. But again, the switching is really what makes the difference here. His speed control's a little bit out of whack there. He's using the afterburners in the wrong positions and for a bit too long. What you want to try and do is probably just go on the test range really and just practice in first person looking at the cockpit. There's a little number in a box just to the top left of the screen. You can see it every time I'm in first person, just left of that circle, like diagonally up to the left. There's a little box with a number in it. That's your airspeed in knots, I believe. So you want to keep that around 313. In vertical loops, that's where you need to use your afterburners. In horizontal loops, you need to use your air brake, not your afterburners. So because I'm taking the lock there and I'm getting into a dogfight, now's a good time to use the ECM. But since this jet is heading back towards the center of the battlefield, where the lock came from, I pay the price by eating a stinger here. So it's something to keep in mind. If you're getting locked by multiple targets and you're starting a dogfight, it's actually better to use your ECM to get off the radar and run away. You don't want to have to be stuck in a long, protracted dogfight where you're fighting over the enemy's lock-ons or AA or anything like that. Use your ECM, do a switch, get close to the ground to stay off the radar and fly away. It's a good way to stay alive if you know that you're going to be outnumbered in the fight coming ahead. What you want to do is fight on your own terms. Drag the enemy jet away from the support of their team, away from their base AA, away from the stingers, away from the other jet. Pull them towards your base AA or pull them towards anything really that's out of range of all the other threats, and then deal with them one-on-one. So there was a nice little laser fake out. That tank probably had enough warning to use their APS because I did fake out a little bit early, but the principle still works in general. So here I'm going to try it again, locking on, but I did spot the jet, so that takes priority. Nice little one pass there. So a one pass is where you perfectly stay on their tail to hose them down in one go, so that no dogfight occurs. It's just a one and done type of thing. And the best way to one pass enemy jets, in my opinion, is to actually pitch instead of rolling or yawing or anything like that. So what I mean by that is if a jet is flying perpendicular to you, you don't want to yaw towards them. You actually want to roll 90 degrees in their direction of motion and then pitch up, because pitching is the most mobile way that you can change the trajectory of your jet. So I'll hopefully be able to explain that again with an example later on in the video, but it's really the best way to one pass a jet or to stay on them. So right now, here, see how I'm sideways on the map basically. I've rolled to the left 90 degrees and I'm pitching up, so I'm pulling the nose up. That way I can keep my cannon on the enemy jet and one pass him. So I'm just keeping my distance here. My ECMs are down and I didn't really pay attention to where that lock came from, so I'm just avoiding the entire map in general. Now I know where the lock is. It's up near the flag just ahead of me, so a bit close there on that helicopter. Luckily for me, he turned away, but that's just something I'm gonna have to work on, is the commitment level when I'm strafing the helicopters. They're hard to hit sometimes, and they can maneuver wildly when you're getting close to them. Here's a beautiful example of why you should always shoot at little gadgets on the map. That guy's standing right next to his soft lamp rather, and he pays the price for it. There's no warning for him that I'm locking onto his soft lamp, so he has no idea a laser guided missile is on the way. It's a free little kill, and it also helps the team by keeping the lasers off the map. The friendly tanks aren't getting lased all the time and hit with javelins for extra damage. Just looking around, spotting things in general. Not totally sure where that lock was coming from, so I just kept my distance again. Gonna try a little laser fake out here. There's so many tanks to shoot at, it doesn't really matter if I manage to do any damage. It's just about popping APS and scaring tanks. Bit of a force multiplier type of effect going on, so if you're lasing, you know, multiple tanks, then those tanks all feel the threat of being lased, and they all start to behave more passively because they think there's multiple lasers, whereas in reality it's just the one laser, just you switching between them. But yeah, unfortunately that helicopter actually did manage to land a heat seeker on me. Did a fair chunk of damage, so that's something that can happen with your ECM. If you ECM too early and your ECM runs out before the pursuing rocket explodes on its own, it can just continue to track you and then hit you. So it's always good to keep in mind the timing of your ECM. I'm just going to put some pressure on these tanks down here, try and get both their APSs. Unfortunately for me, my laser got distracted by the spawn beacon, so that did undo my fake out there. So I figure out which helicopter's tracking me by looking at him, but also by, on the radar, looking at the helicopter that's turning and following me. You can see that little icon spinning around. So since he's been locking me, I'm just going to come directly above him, put as much damage on as I can. Start taking a few hits here from the enemy jet, so I'm going to start a switch. He's still on my tail, but luckily the friendly jet takes care of him. And I'm going to go back for that helicopter, but the friendly jet beats me to it, so just back to scanning the map, looking for things to shoot at. The game's in the bag at this point. We have a majority flags, and the team is doing quite well on the ground, so I'm just going to put some pressure on with these tanks, try and help out a little bit. So those two tanks were very out of position. They were deep in enemy lines, and they're going to pay the price for it, being surrounded by our tanks. But in the meantime, I'm going to help out these little choppers, try and put a bit of pressure on this LAV down here, get him to make a mistake, or, you know, get out to repair. Maybe the choppers can kill the guys he repairs. This has been a good game, but in just a sec, you're about to see a passive radar glitch. So right there, basically what happened was I popped my ECM before the missile actually impacted. So pretty much with the passive radar, they continue to fly towards their target even when they lose their lock for a brief amount of time. And what that means is if you don't pop your ECM early enough to break the lock, that rocket is already got your number. It's already flying towards you. And once it's flying towards you, there's not much you can do. If you can't evade in time, it's going to hit you. But in terms of the actual passive radar glitch, that is basically when you don't get any notification at all. So it's not quite what happened there. I did have a bit of warning, and I should have used my ECM earlier to counter that lock ahead of time, preventing it from being able to track me in the first place. But unfortunately, I got a bit complacent because it's getting towards the end of the game. I didn't really care if I went down, so I paid the price for it. Anyway, just going to close the game out with a couple of snipes here. Just get on the flag, try and cap it. If you don't know, if you're looking to cheese extra points after the game ends, leave your character on a flag that you're capping, because you'll still get points while the game is ending. So if you're close to getting a flag, just stick on it. It's the best way to secure a few extra points. Anyway, I hope you learned something. There was a brief discussion about positioning and target priority, as well as mistakes made and how to deal with strategies from opponents. Thanks for watching.